introduction. I'm really delighted to hand over to Daliso Chaponda, certainly my favourite comedian. I'm sure you'll know him for coming third in Britain's Got Talent, reaching the finals. The two series of his fantastic Radio 4, BBC Radio 4 programme, Citizens for Nowhere, is hugely inspiring, really, really funny. And right through lockdown, Daliso's been there doing comedy from home on Zoom, so he's an absolute pro. Please, whether you can whether you're unmuted or not, please embarrass yourself wherever you are by clapping unreasonably loudly, and give it up for Daliso Chaponda. Daliso Chaponda.
Clap like I'm in the NHS. Yes, please. You have no idea how much of a delight it is to perform for you. Number one, as a comedian without a live audience, I am so desperate to hear claps and laughs. It's very good to have you here. Also, because this is the Scotland-Malawi partnership, this is one of the few times I can perform while I'm in the UK without having to explain what Malawi is, right? Often I have to tell people, Malawi, where Madonna adopted all the babies from. I have to somehow contextualize Malawi, but you all know Malawi. In fact, you remind me of two events which would have been part of my year, which did not happen. I was gonna go this July, do a show in BICC in Lilongwe. Alas, that did not happen because of COVID, and I did not in August do a new show in Edinburgh, as I always do to the Scottish people. So this has been a sad year for all of us, especially people who are in lockdown. Like, clap your hands or indicate somewhere people who have been in lockdown alone, if you live alone. Oh, Louisa Pollock, I'm sure like me, you didn't realize, there's a liar here, Kenneth. Kenneth, you said there is a woman next to you. Clearly, okay? I mean alone. I mean those of us who ended up talking to our plants. I did not even reevaluate a lot of my choices because I thought living alone was a step forward. I'm finally independent after living with roommates. And now I was like, no. Yes. Exactly. I like being heckled by children. Babies are allowed to heckle me at the moment. But I will say this. It started out beginning of lockdown. I was sitting alone, entertaining people in this kitchen, and then things changed, right? I became more busy than I'd ever been because of the Black Lives Matter, right? Now, a lot of you might not know this, but whenever something black and bad happens, all of the TV and radio stations in the UK panic because they don't want to seem racist, and they call people like me. I was on everything. I was on radio, I was on television, I was on morning shows, just being like a token, answering questions. And it's created this weird situation where, of course, I don't like it when racist things happen. But on the other hand, it's really good for my career. It's created this situation where, of course, I don't want something tragic to happen. My heart is MLK. My heart is Martin Luther King, but my brain is KKK. Right? I'm like, something. And of course, it's terrible when it's tragic. I think the sweet spot for me is when somebody famous and white just says something racist, right? It's all of the press and none of the guilt, right? The more we wouldn't expect it for them, the better it is for me. I can tell you now, if Adele dropped the N-word, I would have a television show in 1 month. Oh, but it's been a strange time, and it's very good to be part of this. This has been the first time ever where I'm on a show where the opening acts were a government and a first minister, right? This is a lot of pressure. I also see that you just had an election. You just did an election which you're going to kind of, please learn from past experience. Before you do it, look and check if anyone has changed the results with Tipex. Okay. Be careful. But I love being in the UK. I love visiting Malawi. But what is funny about performing here is, of course, what I'm most known for here is coming third in Britain's Got Talent. Oh, someone was explaining the Tipex joke. All the Malawians got it instantly. Okay. On the government, I actually got to tell you what funny thing about is that my father is a politician, right? My father's a politician and used to be in power. He's now in the opposition. And Malawi's favorite joke, by far Malawians' favorite joke, is I used to do a joke about him, about when he was in power. It was tough because when I was a kid, no matter what grades I got, they weren't good enough, right? If I got 5 A's, 2 B's, you'd say, no, you're not reaching your potential, apply yourself. If I got 7 A's, 1 B, no, you're not reaching your potential, apply yourself. And so when he was in power, I used to call him on occasion and I used to say, Dad, there are food shortages all over Malawi. There's lots of load shedding. I don't think you're reaching your potential. You should apply yourself. A lot of Malawians never understood. They're like, how do you make fun of the government so much when your father's in it? And you've got to understand, as a comedian, it is our job to talk to power, right? We mock whoever is in power. That is always my job. But I've got to tell you, the last few years, there were some times when I'd write a joke and I'd do it. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm out of the will. I could see it happening. But now that they are no longer in power, MCP is giving me a chance to get myself back in the will. Okay? So any jokes are not personal, they are financial. In the UK, the interesting thing is, actually, this doesn't apply as much to Scotland, because Scotland, more people in Scotland know Malawi exists. We know because of Livingston, because of groups like yours. But when I'm in the UK, I get very bizarre questions in England and in Wales, right? I was in England, in Oxford, and a woman approached me after a show, clearly a fan. And she said, oh, you're so funny. It's so inspiring, the way you came from nothing. I was like, what is this woman on about? I didn't come from nothing. But the more she spoke, I realized what had happened. This woman had watched way too many charity ads.
Yeah.
And convinced herself that I must have grown up in some refugee camp somewhere.
Yeah.
And she meant well, but she was saying something like, oh, you've come so far. How do you speak such good English? Did Britain's Got Talent find you in a village? Yes, Malawi is one of the poorest countries in the world, but I wasn't. And of course I spoke English. Of course I did, because I actually posh British schools in Malawi, in Kenya, in Swaziland, right? But it's really interesting because we take it for granted. And anyone here who went to one of those post-colonial schools would know exactly what I'm talking about. That the education curriculum was weird, because I remember studying in Malawi and in Kenya, surrounded by Africans, right? You'd think maybe I'd learn some Swahili or some Chichewa. It never came up. We learned English, French, Latin. Latin's a dead language.
Oh no.
Dead language. There's no one walking around going, I'm a bow, I'm a bass, I'm a bat. My crazy British school thought there's more chance I'm going to run into the ghost of Julius Caesar than another living, breathing African, right? And then in history class, right? In history class.
You're gonna go.
What was I going to say? Right? Maybe you'd expect I'd learn a little bit of African history when I was in Kenya, maybe learn about Kenyatta. When I was in Malawi, learn about Kamuzu Banda. No! It never came up. They taught me Henry VIII, William the Conqueror. And I didn't question it because I was a kid, but as you grow older, I realized in loads of subtle ways, my school was telling me that my culture was terrible and British culture was better. And then I moved to the UK and I heard people saying, why do all these immigrants come here? And I was like, they prepared me. Did you think I was going to go? You taught me Latin and English and French. They should have taught me Japanese if they didn't want me here. Oh, gosh. And I will say this. I am a citizen of nowhere, as I say in my show. I don't really fit in each country. I nearly caused, when I did Britain's Got Talent, for the first time, Malawians, I was always this weird, you're not really Malawian, you don't speak the language, you don't like Nsima, what's wrong with you? Then I did Britain's Got Talent. Then Malawians were all saying, yes, he's Malawian. A schism.
Yes, yes.
I am Malawian, but I was born in Zambia. And so some newspaper wrote Zambian comedian. And out of nowhere, all the Malians said, hey, they're trying to steal him. Huh? Don't you steal him. He's ours. He's ours. Don't you steal him. So it's very good. Very good. Oh, so my time's almost up. So I will leave you. There's a Q&A. Let me just turn off the little alarm. So the last joke I will tell you is, of course, there are some differences. The biggest actual difference I found in Malawian culture and Scottish culture is the churches, right? Because Malawian churches are exciting. I grew up going to a Pentecostal church, clapping, right? Singing, people dancing. This is what I expect. A little bit of passion from the pastor. First time I went, actually, it was an Anglican church. I did not know what was going on. It was so boring. I was looking around saying, somebody stand up. What is busy, right? You've got to get God's attention. Oh my, and Malawian churches, and especially South African churches, Nigerian churches. In Africa, we've got drama, miracles going down. I was once next to a woman who started speaking in tongues. Oh, I didn't expect it. She just got up and went. I didn't know what it meant. Then I moved to the UK. Now I know it was Welsh. Gentlemen, this has been a delight. And also, thank you so much. Before the Q&A, I just want to thank you for letting me be part of this. Like most people right now, have a job like mine. I've been unemployed for 6 months, just sitting in a kitchen, waiting for life to resume, and having laughter makes it feel like the good old days. So thank you.
Thank you, Daddy. Thank you.
Thank you, Daddy.
Hey, hey, hey.
Oh, thank you.
Hey.
What's in that cup? What's in that cup, Daddy?
And we say,
We've got
So
some.
who is
Daliso,
the
not
questioner?
Daliso.
I'll fire some questions if I
God.
may, Daliso. Can we just mute all for a second, just so we can have a wee
you
chat?
mute for the Q&A? Thank you so much for all of this. Thank you.
What we're going to do, put your questions in the chat box. I'll get us started, but put your questions in the chat box and I'll maybe
Any questions in the chat box?
steer the conversation. But
No
Daliso,
political question about DPP strategy. I'm not aware.
well, Daliso, let me start if I may.
Yes.
You've said what you're not going to maybe miss about Scotland, the churches. But you've obviously not been able to come up to Edinburgh this August. We've missed you. I hope you've missed us. What are you going to miss about not having been up in Scotland? What do you miss about Scotland?
Well, the thing which I do in Scotland is the Edinburgh Festival. And for anybody who's not been aware, it's like the biggest comedy festival in the world. And it's this insane thing where around every corner, there's like a different show. There's all sorts of things. It's like, think of Lake of Stars times 50. It's absolutely gigantic. And for an artist, it's the best thing because I can try out my ideas. Every Edinburgh Festival, I probably do in the course of August, 206 shows. And I miss it so much. Next year, hopefully.
Absolutely. And I want to ask, I mean, so many of the topics you make a joke about it, but so much of the topics that you take on are quite hard topics. You've talked about cultural relativism. You've talked passionately about racism. You've talked about immigration. I mean, what I find really inspiring listening to your shows is it's often the same stuff that we're banging on about to the politicians in Westminster. You're the only other person that I've ever heard mention the 1955 UK-Malawi double taxation treaty. And I've spent the last 12 years banging heads against the wall in Westminster and Whitehall to try and get things improved. But what you've been successful at is on prime time radio and TV, being able to talk about these things. And I want to ask you about that. How do you find that? How do you find talking about, difficult, sensitive things in such an effective way that can fire people up in quite a sort of disarming and constructive way? How do you find that?
I think that the amazing thing about humor is it lets you talk about stuff people would be uncomfortable listening to you talk about, things that they would tune out from. If somebody said, at 8 o'clock tonight, there's going to be a lecture about racism, nobody is tuning in, right? But if you're doing a joke, you can hide it, you can talk about it, and often things which are taboo. I remember in Malawi doing a show, I'm not sure what year it was, but I remember doing a show after the two men had just been arrested, Antitio, and it was a big scandal. Nobody was talking about it, but because I talked about it on stage, it was something people could laugh about and talk about. And I think the powerful thing about humor and the reason why I moved towards it is like you're like a journalist with gags in between the facts, and it lets you talk about anything. Now, you can overstep the mark, but that's why I practice a lot, so that I generally am staying just on the right side of making people laugh over hurting their feelings.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks, Daliso. Let me pull out a question here. Lindsay asks, are there similarities between Blantyre and Manchester, where you are now?
I would say the biggest, it's people are people, right? At the end of the day, like, people are people. There's some economic differences, but there's the same kind of like laughing at life, accepting when life is rough, right? I think that's why I chose to live in Manchester, because there's the same kind of like, we can't change it, we might as well laugh, which is a lot of the survival experience in Malawi.
Absolutely, absolutely. Vera Kamtakula asks, what's your plan after COVID? When they release you from your kitchen?
When I'm released, oh Lord, it's lasted longer than I expected. I will go on tour again, because that's my favorite thing. I've been writing a show which is called Apocalypse Not Now, about this year. Interestingly, some of the things you were saying about some of the ways that it's terrible, but it's also let us reevaluate and build back better. But with me, it's doing that with my life and relationships and family, not necessarily with the company.
Fantastic, thank you. And Matthew Smetabuka in Malawi says, looking at the numbers, Malawi's doing pretty well with COVID, a lot better than the UK. Why don't you come back to Malawi?
Well, you can't be sure of the numbers if you don't have a lot of tests. You know what I mean? It's like we don't really know what's going on. Like, I've got family who are in the medical, and yes, it looks good, but are we sure? Like, how many people are being tested? But either way, I'm definitely going to come to Malawi in December to see my family.
Good stuff. Fantastic. Let's go political. Douglas Coulter asks, Trump or Biden?
I'm Biden. Look, Trump gives me jokes, right? Trump gives me jokes every day, but I'll somehow survive. I'm worried more about the world than I am for my joke writing.
Fair enough. Good answer. Good answer. Luke asks, what's your home district in Malawi? And what food do you miss most in Malawi?
Mulanje, and I just miss the meat, because I hate to say it, the meat in the UK is not nearly as flavorful as Malawian meat.
Fair enough. There's a lot of Northerners in this.
I see nodding.
There's a lot of enthusiasm there. And I mean, I want to ask you. I mean, for those that don't know, Daliso, total legend. He hasn't parachuted in and is doing this segment. He's been with us all day, a part of the discussion. So I guess I want to ask you, what stood out from you today in listening to the conversations and listening to us banging on about the friendship between Scotland and Malawi? What stands out for you?
I think the big thing which I liked was how optimistic and hopeful it was, because I think a lot of us right now, and particularly social media, is very negative, very cynical, and yes, depressing things are happening, but it's easy to get dragged down by it, right? And I just like the way that it's all looking forward and saying, oh, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to cope. And it's just a good tonic against the general state of gloom which I witness around me.
Fantastic. Thanks, Daliso. I've got to say, you saying tonic reminds me of a story. I hate it when people tell things to me about something my dad did once, but one time your dad was up in Scotland when he was the foreign minister, Honourable George Chaponda, and we were talking about, and he asked us, what is this iron brew? And at this time we were building Scottish markets for Malawi and gin. So we had lots of Malawian gin. We were about to give MGTs out. So I quickly spoke to the place where we were, and they got some iron brew. So we sort of, who's the foreign minister? So we thought, it's a real diplomatic coup. This is great. We're going to invent a cocktail, the Scotland-Malawi cocktail of iron brew with Malawian gin. And this is this physical embodiment of the Scotland-Malawi partnership. And we drank it, and I can confirm that is the least tasty cocktail that there's ever been
Yes,
in the history.
that sounds like a bad idea. Wonderful.
He was very, very diplomatic, but I noticed he's not been back to Scotland ever since. So please do send our apologies for it.
I will indeed. I will indeed.
But listen, we've really, really enjoyed your comedy, Daliso. I mean, in all seriousness, if you haven't listened to it, get on BBC Sounds right now and listen to Citizens for Nowhere. It is almost like the sort of manifesto of everything we believe in and everything we stand for. It is passionate, it is funny, it is powerful, it's changing lives. And I really want to just send, we're just really inspired and really appreciate
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Your involvement today.
I'm writing series 3 right now, so that's very good to know. Thank you so much.
And I see Kate, our travel partners, Orbis Expeditions. Kate's in the chat box offering you to lead one of their fantastic celebrity-led expeditions out to Malawi.
Message. Send her my contact. It's the sort of thing I would do. I know nothing about it, but let me know if we could even synchronize it with when I'm going to Malawi anyway or something. So
fantastic.
So just let me know.
But no, really, really, really appreciate it, Daliso. You're an absolute legend. But we do have one really important job for you to do before any of us go anywhere. And that is, Craig, can we de-spotlight so we can have the gallery view? And if you have a Malawi virtual background, can you put your camera on? So let's see if this works. So if we shift to gallery view, and if you maybe
now part of me thinks that one of the winners should be someone who isn't able to turn on their camera, because that would be simulating load shedding.
Spot on.
Okay, let's see. Let's see. What have we got? Ooh. Okay, I see a contender. I see a contender right here. So okay, let's see. Let's see what else we have. So how many winners are there?
I think 2, Daliso. 2, if you choose 2.
Okay, I choose number 1. I choose Fiona. Fiona, who I think has a Jitendra behind her, which is very impressive. And I think I choose, CEM Edgar Bayani, right? Because he's got a flag and he's got a hat, he's got an outfit, he's got 2 flags, he's everything about you, right? I bet those glasses are Scottish. Right, you've got everything. So those would be the 2 which I vote.
Fantastic. Well, listen, let me tell them what they've won. Fiona, you have won a Blue Zebra 2 nights for 2 adults at Blue Zebra Island Lodge. And Edgar, who always shows us up, resplendent is his dress as always. You've won a Kiboko Safari, a 3-day Kiboko Safari. Now I know Edgar, you are in Malawi, so I'm sure you'll be able to take that up without any delay. Fiona, there is a lot of flexibility on the dates of when you can take that up. But please, a round of applause for our 2 winners, but also for Daliso Chaponda.
Thank you all.